Hi guys, John the Firearms instructor, and welcome back. Listen, we had a subscriber ask us a question. I thought it was pretty good. She's asking at what age should she teach her children about firearms and firearm safety. Now, let's talk about this real quick because I think it's very important to understand you understand your child better than anybody else. And there are some maturity level things we have to get to. And the question was given to me without getting any more details, right? We want to make sure that you understand right off the bat it's your responsibility as a parent to keep the firearm away from a child, have it locked away or whatever you need to do. It is your responsibility to make sure that gun's not available for them to use when you're not at home. Children should not touch any firearms or anything else without parent supervision. I'll say that right off the bat. I don't want to get a bunch of people screaming to me about children, but children are inquisitive. And if you keep your firearm away from them, they're going to want to know more about it. And you want to tell them more about it, not them find out themselves. And this is very important. So what age? It's your child, you know. I think handgun safety can be taught as soon as they can understand. As far as just don't touch it. If you see it, tell a parent. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Go tell a parent. All that stuff like that. That's important. Number one. I was never worried about my children touching a firearm. We had firearms in the house, as did my father. There was no such thing as a safe at the time. Dad put them away. Dad told us not to touch them. Dad took us out shooting. We learned about handgun safety through my father, and we just never touched them. We never messed with them or anything else like that. I was never worried about my children touching firearms. I was worried about my children going someplace else that the parents weren't very educated to tell their children about firearms. And I told my boys very young age, hey, if anybody's messing with a firearm or anything else like that, you call me or you come home immediately, come tell me, you won't get in trouble, and I'll go talk to the parents, because that's a very important thing, because that children get hurt with firearms because they're not educated on what causes the weapon to go bang. So there are a few things we need to talk about as far as what we tell the child. The child's very important, very inquisitive. That's what they're designed to do. As a young man, I learned a lot of stuff from my father. Learned a lot of stuff on accident by making mistakes. You don't want to make a mistake with a firearm. And as a parent, you hear the stories all the time where the kid finds the firearm and shoots his sister or brother due to the fact that they were not educated. Now, what age? The age is up to you. Now, I would tell you there's a couple criterias we need to get to. Number one, can the child hold the weapon up, whether it be a rifle or a pistol? That's number one. Can the child get his hand around to the trigger and get to a point? That's number two. I would recommend, if we're going to start them with anything, I would start them with a rifle, 22, if you want to use a real rifle, or you could use a BB gun. BB guns will work just as fine. Bullets not traveling as fast. The BB's not traveling as fast. Still deadly. Gotta be careful with it. But you could start a lot of stuff with that in the backyard or in the garage and get them. I would recommend, if I'm starting a child out, I would tell you, in my opinion, Johnny and Jacob, we're about 7 or 8 years old. 7 or 8 years old, we had a Red Ryder and we were in the backyard shooting tin cans. That's what my father did with me. My father, every Saturday he got off work, I had a glass of cold iced tea waiting for him. We would have Army men, back then the Army men were about this tall, and I put blue and red Army men, and we would have an Army battle. And Dad would shoot my blue guys and I would shoot Dad's red guys. And Dad would be missing the whole time until I got down to about, 3 or 4 of his men left, and then Dad would wipe me out at the end there. So that's kind of, but it was reactionary. We had fun with it. There were some safety things Dad talked about, making sure the barrel's pointed down, keeping your finger off the trigger, all that stuff like that until you're ready to fire. Don't pull the trigger, press the trigger. And it really made me appreciate that. That's why when we do our kids shootouts here, they're all reactionary. They're balloons and tin cans and stuff like that, and we do those every. Matter of fact, next Saturday, we're having a kids shootout here at the range. And there's 5 lanes, 5 children, and it's 4 times. And we give them the rifle, we give them the pistol, we give them some safety briefing, and then we introduce the parents and the kids to some shooting of rifles. They're single shot 22s, and they work really well. I would tell you, you want to use a lot of different drills and tips for the kids to make sure they understand the basics. Number one is a weapon is always loaded. So when they look at that rifle or that pistol, they need to make sure that they understand the weapon is always loaded. Number 2, they need to keep the finger off the trigger until they're ready to fire. Number 3, they need to know their target and what's beyond. Number 4, they need to keep the weapon pointed down range. And those are the things we need to beat into them. I don't need to say beat, but we need to get that in their head immediately. So even with a kid toy gun, you want to make sure they have the discipline enough to make a pistol, to pick up a pistol, and watch them as they're working around the guns and doing all that stuff. Those little things. But we want them to have fun. We don't want to be screaming at them. We don't want to holler at them. We need more children to get involved in shooting, because children become boys, boys become men, men become fathers, and that will extend our shooting sport. So there really isn't an age that I would say is too young to start, as long as they can manipulate, hold, and everything else like that. But they have to understand. You know your children better than I do. If you can tell your 6-year-old all this stuff and they get it, well, boom, 6, that's fine. But if you're looking at the 6-year-old and it's going way over his head, then wait. Because at that point in time, you don't want to take them into a range that other people are shooting and lose them immediately. That's another thing I'll tell you. We only have a short window of time for these children. We don't want to overgun them. This is very important. So we want to start small, smart with a BB gun, or start with something that had airsoft. You can start with airsoft if you want. I don't really care. It doesn't have to be a full rifle. Airsoft, Dixie cups, knocking them down, that's fun and neat. And then it transitions everything over. Everything's the same. Airsoft has a trigger, it has all that stuff. But at that point in time, once you get there, then we need to always, no matter what, if it's a toy, or if it's an airsoft, or if it's a BB gun, or if it's a real pistol, or a real rifle, we need to make sure they have them. Hi guys, back. Had a phone call, I apologize. Try to do these videos all in one little thing, but it doesn't always work that way. So we were talking about introducing your children to the firearm safety rules, and I'm going to give those to you. I'm going to put a picture of the one here too. But number 1 rule of all firearms is to make sure that you understand they are all loaded, whether you know they're loaded or not. You just assume they're loaded. If you assume they're loaded, where's your finger not going to be on the trigger? You're never going to point the gun at anything you love and don't want to destroy. Always keep the weapon pointed down range, and know your target and what's beyond. These are handgun safety and firearm safety rules that cannot be broken. It's imperative you teach your children these. I'm going to put a link to a picture of one of these here that you can memorize yourself. I would highly recommend, if you don't feel comfortable teaching your children, that you take a firearm safety class with your child. Some instructors allow it, some instructors don't. Now at a young age, they don't do it very much. These classes are more for teens, not young. But a firearm safety course for you will build your foundation, which you can extend that foundation to a significant other, whether it be your husband, your wife, or your children. Passing on those safety things. The more safer you are with a firearm, your children want to emulate you. And if you're running around with your finger on the trigger pointing all over the place, that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, keep in mind, this is a big thing about teaching children to shoot or not shoot. that's your deal. No one can tell you what age, but I would highly recommend if you could tell a 6-year-old and they're gathered and they've got it and they're pretty smart, then you could do any age you want to do. I would not recommend over gunning them though. That's the key thing. Start with what you think they can handle. If you think they can handle a pistol and they can hold on to it and pick it up and hold it and manipulate and they can touch the trigger, then the pistol's going to work. I would recommend starting all children out with rifles. It's a lot easier. They're going to have more fun and they're going to be more accurate with a rifle. And make sure you put some reactionary targets out, whether it be a balloon, whether it be a tin can, whether it be something that moves or makes noise, will make them have more fun. We only have a short window of time with these children. Overgunning them, putting them in a range that people are shooting, doing a large caliber, all these things are going to scare them away. We don't want to scare them away. We want to invite them in, make sure they have fun, and make sure that we are let them have more fun with a weapon. Firearms aren't toys, but we can make sure that they become more respectful of the weapon itself, and that's the key thing we want. The more our children get into this sport, the more those children become teens, teens become men, men become husbands, and they become fathers, and they extend our legacy of the shooting sport and get it to the point because they want to do something with you. Take time to do something with them, and shooting could be one of them. Until next time, God bless, be safe, and remember, you are your first line of defense.